Welcome to the Outer Realm with Michelle DeRoche and Amelia Pisano. Airing live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 FM in New Orleans.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Thursday night segment of the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live right here on the United Public Radio Network and UFO Paranormal Radio Network 105.3 and 107.7 from the beautiful city of New Orleans. We are fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers Coffee who have been a part of our Outer Realm journey since day one. So thank you, Folgers. We appreciate you so very much. Also, big thank you to Justin Snicker, Dr. Snick, the sonic surgeon, who is an award-winning composer of Halloween, horror, sci-fi, and dark wave electronic music. And he is the voice that you hear on our intro. He is the inspiration and the music basically behind the intro and outro. So we're very, very thankful to him. Also, big thank you to artist Steve McGinnis, who is responsible for the artwork that you see with our logos and so on. So big thank you to him as well. Tonight, the Outer Realm welcomes a really awesome collaboration with our dear friends, Hamilton White and Richard Stanley, who we're just waiting for everybody to chime in now as we wait. And it's going to be really informative and a lot of fun. So we're hoping that you can all chime into the chat room, which I see you are. And I'm going to remind everybody that here on the soundboard, we have 8 different chat rooms. And with these chat rooms, unfortunately, it's like a super highway with 8 lanes that are essentially coming down into one. So we're going to do our best to get to everybody, as quickly as possible. But we do have to keep in line with what is actually being spoken about. So bear with us, please. And let me see, the chat rooms tonight are in. Let's start with Facebook. Joe Montaldo, UFO Undercover, Canada's Most Haunted. Moi, Michelle DeRoche. News on the flip side, the Outer Realm, of course. UFO Paranormal Radio Network, United Public Radio Network. Then we jump over to YouTube for the Outer Realm, UFO Gods and Extraterrestrials, and UFO Paranormal Radio. So that's where you need to be able to chime in here. So with that being said, I see people chiming in. We've got Zach Man. How's it going? Tamara, of course. How's it going? Marcus, hello. Ken Keyser, hello. April, hello. Wayne, hello. So I see Hamilton's here, so we're just going to bring him on while we wait for Richard. You ready, Hamilton? Just nod. Good. All right. Yeah, we're dancing. I love it. Hi there. How are you?
Greetings, Folgers poster boy is here.
Ah, yes.
Wonderful. There we go. I've done my plugging already. Keeping everyone happy.
Oh, of course. You know it. You got the real deal cup too. I had to get the remake.
Fantastic. How's life?
It's good. It's good. You know, it's busy. It's crazy, but that's the way it goes. So, how about you?
Old and tired. I'll be glad when this year's over. I'm kind of done with 2022. I really am.
Not good. This is not good.
I don't know. It just seems that the last, 6-8 weeks, that every day some new creature crawls from under a stone just to make my life difficult and create another problem. You know what I mean? It just seems to be one of those little periods of time where you just sort of think, what am I doing? But hey, I'm sure it'll pass anyway.
I don't know. The world is getting crazy here by the day. I'm resending the link to Richard, which is what I'm doing, if anybody's wondering here. So we're going to.
I've just got him on my telephone.
Okay, I've sent it to him again.
Okay, hang on. Let's see if you. Sorry,
you guys were actually together. I sent it together, so I figured. Okay.
Yes. Good.
Okay.
I'm ready, willing, and available. I will roll the smoke and bide my time. That'll be Richard then. He's got the message.
All right then.
Oh dear, oh dear. So
I
you're
know.
holding the fort while Amelia's doing the family stuff and being stressed.
Amelia has sensed her love, of course, and yes,
Cool.
it's sort of that's sort of the way it goes. She's got a lot going on, and I didn't want her having any additional stresses. So I'm like, "We'll be
Yeah,
here when
makes
you
sense.
get back. Just go do what you got to do."
Yeah, definitely. I've had a couple of messages from her, and she's just sort of said, "Well, we've explained the situation, and I can't remember what I did, but apparently I'm getting some free chocolate bars sent to me, which is always good."
The chocolate's always
So,
good. I got some
and
also
she
Santa's
said
like,
she'd been shopping on the internet, which had cheered her up. So I
yeah, and she's
can't
in
be that
chat,
bad.
and she says she
Is
misses you.
she?
Here we go.
Oh, excellent effort.
There we go.
Jolly good.
Oh, and here's your compadre. Oh,
No,
no.
there he is.
The gang's out here now. So,
Good evening, one and all. So good to be back.
hello, hello. Nice to
Joel
have you.
Hamilton,
I'm here.
Amelia joining us.
Nope, Amelia is off. She's in chat, but she's off because she's got some family stuff going on. So Hamilton and I were just talking about that. We're like, okay, we're going to take off the work pressure and tend
Definitely.
to everything that's going on. Her daughter is having a kidney transplant next week.
Oh
So
my
it's
gosh.
yes, so it's a
Yeah.
very stressful time, and I'm like, we'll be here. Don't worry about it. But she's in the chat room. Here we go.
Oh, there we go.
There we
Greetings.
go. She'll hang
Yeah,
on
don't
as long
stress
as she
out.
can.
Yeah, take
And
it easy.
yes,
Amelia, if you were here, I'd have worn my scarf. My
you can
scarf
sit
did a
there.
grand
She can
tour of the
sit there.
south of France recently.
That's
There we
true.
go.
I saw it. It was on you.
Yes.
I came in to say Happy New Year.
Is too good.
I
I'm
love
just
you
reading the
back.
messages. Oh
And
God.
then
So,
we've got.
God, what do you need to know then?
What do I
What
need
do we
to? I
need to
want to know
dazzle you with?
everything. Who are you kidding? It's
Everything.
me and 3 million other people. What don't we want to know?
Okay, well, look, question, because I did see most of last night's show. Richard, the bleeding stones. What's the
Yes.
name of the cave
Yeah,
they
Jim
come
is
out of in
actually
France?
Jim
Wouldn't you
was
like
on
to
last
know?
night, and he's watching. He's
Ah,
watching. He follows Richard very closely.
cool. So I was watching it, and I know I couldn't remember the name of the caves where the stones came from.
Okay, so it's a bunch of caves in the Ariège. We believe they were all one cave back before the Ice Age. But at the time of the last Ice Age, a massive glacier carved out the valley of the Ariège and cleft the cave system in half.
Right.
So now half the tunnel entrances are in one side of the valley and half in the other. And I think they were all connected into one vast system, of which the best known part is the Lombrive, which is open for tourism, which was the largest limestone system in Europe until a few years ago, but has subsequently been dethroned by a more recent discovery in the zone, which is even larger. I think the Lombrive's about 6 or 7 miles long.
Wow.
Since then, they've found a system near the Col Saint-Louis, which is about 23 miles long, which is absolutely massive.
Right.
And specifically, Otto was obsessed with the Grotto of Fontenay.
Right. And why?
Fontenay,
Why specifically?
which he connected with an identically named cave in Wolfram von Eschenbach's 12th century troubadour romance Parsifal.
Right.
A lot of Otto, and also Otto's mentor, Antonin Gedal, who went on to become kind of a spiritual figurehead to the European Rosicrucians, heavily excavated those caves and also excavated Fontenay.
And what were they looking for, dare I ask?
Well, I think they were very, very obsessed with the Cathar story and believed that after the genocidal crusade against the South, that the heretical faith had continued to survive literally underground in the caves of the Ariège. But there's also a very, very specific myth which we can't source. We don't know who started it. And I don't know whether it's a myth or a reflection of a historic fact, but it's widely believed that after the fall of the castle of Montsegur, a party of people smuggled the remaining treasure out of the castle. There's the story about the 3 people who were lowered by ropes down the sheer side of the mountain the night after March 16th, after the burning, and who allegedly escape across the Tabor, across the Pic de Saint Barthélemy, down into the valley of the Ariège, and then, according to at least the 19th century French historian Napoleon Peyrat and Maurice Marg and a lot of people who were taken off from Peyrat's work, they were supposedly entombed alive in a cave system in the Ariège. So obviously, if you've borne the holy treasure out of the castle and then you're trapped in a cave system, the notion was that the Crusaders didn't want to follow them into the cave because it's too easy to defend.
Right.
The entrance is so narrow that you can't get a whole army through it, and if you're going to send one person in at a time, it's very easy to defend and to simply kill them as they come in the door. So the argument was that rather than sending troops in after them, they simply buried them alive by bringing down the side of the mountain on top of the entrance. And I think, judging by what he says in Crusade Against the Grail, Otto Rahn probably bought into the story and possibly believed that the original treasure of Montsegur and its guardians were indeed buried alive in a cavity somewhere in the Ariège, and perhaps hoped to find the full treasure, possibly the lost book of the Cathars, whatever that book was, the book of the 7 seals, which went missing at that point in time.
What do you think?
Well,
Your thoughts on it? Do you think they're there? Do you think that all this information is hidden there? Is that one of the things that makes Montsegur so special?
one of the things that's changed since Herr Rahn's day is thanks to carbon dating and the better grasp of history, we now realize that these cave systems have been continuously inhabited since Cro-Magnon times, since the dawn of man.
Oh, really?
And,
Wow.
the Cathar story occupies a very small bit of history. It's just a period of 100 years, and really just a period of about 30 or 40 years during the actual persecution when this could have happened. But there's literally thousands of years of human traffic through these same sites. Unless there's more archaeological investigation, it's difficult to say whose relics we're actually dealing with. It's quite possible that Otto and Gadal attributed everything they found to the Cathar story, but might well have been finding relics that were that predated the story by a long period of time.
It's
So
fascinating.
that's certainly where the bleeding stones came from.
Wow.
They came out of the caves, and we also retrieved quite a number of them from the bed of the river, from the bottom of the gorge of the Ariège, which I think is to do with the sheer depth of the gorge. My suspicion is that if it's meteoric debris, then it probably lay hidden in the deep strata of the earth for millions of years, and then was only came to the surface when the glacier carved out the valley.
Right.
So it's in the lower levels of the caves.
And these stones, what makes them more special, let's say, than a typical meteorite?
Well, what makes it really special for me is, to date, I have not yet been able to place them within any known human taxonomy. I would very much like somebody to classify them, to tell me what they are, because until somebody is able to actually identify these things, which means conducting a spectrograph and figuring out the chemical density of the stones, there's still a very real possibility that they could be a hitherto unknown mineral element, or something which is at this point in time, unknown to human science. So I'd like to kind of cut that Gordian knot at some point before I die, and actually see if anyone can identify the darn things to start off with.
Right.
Beyond that, they've got a number of bizarre properties. They're highly magnetic. They magnetize. They're superconductive. They're a form of super dense iron, or hence superconductive properties. They don't rust, but secrete this ferrous solution, 99% pure iron, which is pretty much identical to human blood. I didn't believe.
That's what he was talking about. That they sort of blood red. You know.
Yeah,
which is unusual.
It's about the same shade red as your hair dye.
I like it.
It really is. It's just that color. It's the most.
Does it bleed this kind of red? Yeah.
Yeah. It really is the most peculiar thing when you see it, because you sit and hold them and nothing happens. You can sit there for the next 20 years,
right?
But the slightest bit of aggravation rubbing them together, and this stuff just appears out of nowhere. I mean, it really is very, very odd, but I don't know. It's just the way it is. And am I right, Richard? They're only found down in the Ariège. They're not found anywhere else.
Thus far, I've not found a specimen of this particular ore or whatever the substance is from anywhere else. Okay. So I do hear stories about black stones and meteorites from all over the world. And I'm personally curious as to whether the black stone of the Kaaba in Mecca is the same substance. But I'd have to literally take the Hajj, and then I'd have to literally run the risk of having my head cut off or something.
Yes, that's right.
It's not worth it. The chemical, the composition of the black stone of the Kaaba is beyond my means. But it's frequently suggested that it's the same substance. And we hear stories about the Dalai Lama having dorjes made out of the substance as well. But again, unless I'm actually able to test it in some way or to get a sample, it's all myth. I didn't believe in these stones myself until I literally had them in my hands and saw them bleed. At which point I had to basically revise my opinions on it.
Right. Yeah, a lot of people are chiming in. It says fascinating. The stone should be examined by a geological lab, which is pretty much what, yes, Richard is saying. And Tamara says, so the stones are not known or classified.
Yeah, I mean, all we know them by is by their mythological or their designation as lapis excelsis, the stones from the sky. Right. Which is really the name that comes down to us from Parsifal from the 12th century. Right. And lots of people, including our dear late friend Annika Corman, suggested they were a form of hematite. But I don't believe that. I don't think they are hematite. And I've given samples to a lot of reputable people so far.
So you have access to other stones then? Like you do have samples of them?
Yeah, less and less over the years, because every time I give away samples,
you can't find them.
They never come back. Usually two go away at the same time because you've got to rub two together to create the desired effect. And thus far, I've given them to the meteorite department at the British Museum. I've given specimens to the BBC. I've given specimens to the History Channel. I've given specimens to people at Cambridge. And each time the same thing happens. I'm stalled for people for 6 months, a year, for 2 years, while people say that they're waiting to get the spectrograph done, and then usually the sample gets lost.
You know it's something special if that happens. And thank you, Kenny. Thank you for the compliment. Kenny loves my hair. Just saying. Thank you very much, Kenny. I like it.
Okay. Well, all I was trying to do was remember the name of the cave, which it escaped me last night. But I think Richard can probably tell you a bit more than I can. So well done, Rich. Well done.
Oh my God! I don't know what this is. I have no idea what this comment is, but
what's coming up?
It looks like a little bit of maybe, I don't know. I don't know. It's a cancer we're soliciting. Sorry, Guy, not a thing on the show. So Tamara's saying, so could they be Middle Eastern? Possibly.
Wouldn't have thought so. I mean, they're obviously natural to the area. They certainly haven't been imported from some other country and dumped there. I mean,
Right.
it's a meteorite shower, or it's a
Mm.
natural formation. I don't think that. I don't know. It wouldn't make sense to me to think that somebody's hoovered them up in the Middle East and brought them over and thrown them around. I mean, that doesn't make
Right.
Unless they
sense.
were naturally found all over the world, is a possibility. I
Right.
mean, it could be that they're down there in a deep strata and spread over quite a wide area,
Right.
and that only in the areas that the glacier was able to actually churn that stuff up.
Mhm.
At this point in time, we've not
Fantastic.
successfully identified any more samples of the stuff from literally anywhere else.
That's
And
fascinating.
beyond that, I try to stay on the right side of skepticism here, because as we all know, the stones have a lot of claims made about them regarding their healing properties.
Right.
Uh, I've also seen that in action. I've seen people recover from quite major illnesses as a result of of
Mm.
putting the meteor blood either in their food. I treated my mother's cancer by putting meteor blood in her eyes.
And
She,
you're wondering why you've never received your samples back.
Mm.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a curious thing.
Yeah.
And then
Yeah.
also there's a lot of potential military industrial applications for heavy
Mm.
stable elements. We do.
Right.
If it isn't, if that's what it is, if it's really a
Mhm.
form of heavy metal from deep space, the
Yes.
heaviest
Mm.
element we have on Earth is uranium, which we can artificially enrich, and which then becomes plutonium, but becomes unstable and basically extremely dangerous. And it's quite possible that if we have accidentally stumbled over a hitherto unknown mineral element, that
Yes.
it could have tremendous value to someone out there.
Absolutely. Yes, Ken, that's what we're talking about. Absolutely. All right, another question. The geological landscape around Monseigneur is full of what is classified as rare minerals. That is the nature of the mining extensively being done there.
It's very irritating, isn't it, Richard? I mean, that they're nibbling away at chunks of the mountain. It's not a good topic. It really should be stopped.
Hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a problem we've got all over planet Earth at this point in
Yeah.
time.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and
Absolutely.
Montsegur and the zone, we have a running problem here where it seems to, from my limited point of view, I've been living out here now a bunch of years, so I'm half crazy.
Right.
But it keeps running very identifiable plot lines. Every so often, I recognize which plot line I'm in. That plot line going on in Montsegur feels like it's borrowed from Dune or Avatar or Fern Gully. Basically, it's some
Right.
version of the evil galactic empire that's discovered the substance they really need just happens to be underneath your sacred tree, or in this case, it's
Yes.
underneath the sacred
The
mountain.
sacred mountain. Yeah.
Yeah, and once
it would,
again, it's a hitherto unknown mineral, a newly identified mineral element, which is seemingly unknown anywhere else, which is
yeah.
a substance called imerys, Imerys. Imerys, Harg, is the substance they're pulling out of the Tabor.
And what's so
Um,
special about this?
well, I think they're using it for cosmetic makeup and
Oh,
for
come on.
and
What?
paint.
Oh,
It's been used for beauty products,
I
ironically.
can't even. I
Most
can't
extent,
even.
it's like a non-carcinogenic form of talcum powder. Ever since the Johnson and Johnson class suit basically brought to light the problem of talc causing cancer, I think that the talc industry has seized on Imerys HARG as a potential talcum powder replacement. So it's being turned into a beauty product, and it's being sprinkled on babies' asses all across the world.
Right.
But in the course of that, they're also vaporizing what Otto Rahn describes in his book as, quote, surely the most beautiful summit of the Pyrenees.
Right.
Are they still actually mining at the moment? I mean, when we were up there, I couldn't quite see what was going on. Are they still actually digging now?
I think that they've slowed down, which is a good thing.
Okay.
And
That's a good
I do
sign.
believe that the case brought before the European High Court was was a factor in that.
Hmm.
Okay.
It's basically a Rio Tinto. It's a very large international mining consortium who basically have blood on their hands in a bunch of different continents and are a fairly dangerous behemoth to be dealing with. And so long as somebody can make money out of it, and stuff is still down there, they're going to find ways of getting at it.
It would
Uh,
just send me in fits. I wouldn't be able to watch something like that. I'm so volatile. I'd just be over there lipping off.
well, they
I
pretty much.
don't like that. Yeah, I
It
don't
really,
like it.
yeah, even if you'd lived there 10 years and saw it happening, it would be even more the case. So it certainly destroyed my
Absolutely.
life very fast.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I have no doubt about that. Oh,
Yeah, and ironically, it was also a substance that was sacred to people in ancient times. I say ironically because that's in keeping with, say, the spice in Dune, or in, say, in Hodorowski's Meter Baron series. So there's a substance called epithite that the Galactic Empire are trying to get their hands on, and it's unobtainium in Avatar. But in fact, because it's a very beautiful white stone and it's very soft like soapstone, the ancient people carved their talismans and their icons out of it. A lot of sacred objects have been retrieved from graves in the Ariège from literally around the time of the end of the Ice Age, which are actually carved out of the substance. So it's
terrible. Absolutely terrible. Let's switch gears just a little bit. Still keeping, of course, with the area. Looking forward to, and I've been waiting to hear about Henry Lincoln, your acquisition. Because for those who don't, maybe introduce Henry Lincoln for those who may not. You all should know. I'm just saying, right
Well,
there.
we can't bring him on because he's dead.
I know, but people should know. He did a lot of research. If you're interested in for all you DaVinci Code fans out there, it goes way deeper and way back further than what you guys know. But what I like about the DaVinci Code is it introduced people to the area. The fact that there was a story, and I think a lot of people became introduced to Henry Lincoln through Holy Grail, and at least it gave some kind of awareness, which he may or the area may not have had before. Now, with that being said, doesn't mean is the tourism good? Richard, you work the area, is the tourism good because of it, or do you sort of wish I would have been left alone? So we'll come to that, but let's talk Henry Lincoln first.
Well, I thought Henry departed, I think was it February this year, Richard? I think.
It was. It was pretty close to Valentine's Day, I seem to recall.
Yeah, I mean, he had a good innings. He was 92. And I think pretty much up to the end of his life, he was still conversant and still chatting. And I think his days of writing had ended quite some time ago. But Henry as a brand name is still very popular. I mean, there's still the generation of people that read his books 20, 30 years ago. And there's, there really is like this little pocket of mania around Henry that, oh God, I mean, the messages and things I've had come through from a whole assortment of people because they found out that, well, I bought his library and his clutter. It's quite fascinating. I mean, I never met him. Richard, you met him, didn't you, Richard? A few times.
Multiple times over the course of the last 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, you get very mixed reports. I mean,
I heard he was a bit grumpy.
He's obviously a fascinating character. Whatever he was up to and doing, he made a heck of a good last sort of 50 years doing it, is what I would say about it. And I mean, if you talk to his son Rupert, I mean, he's as bemused by it as everybody else is. I mean, he doesn't really seem to know what kind of his dad was up to. But no, I mean, the long and the short of it is when Henry died, they put most of his possessions up for sale. I don't know. I think it was just a closure that the family just wanted the stuff to go. I don't think they wanted it around them anymore.
Mm.
And quite how or why, I don't know. A mutual friend of ours, Sarah, who we see quite frequently in the area, who had known Henry for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
I don't really know why. I just sort of said, oh, why don't you ask Rupert if he wants to sell the whole lot as a package, without really thinking through what I'd actually said. And the message
Right.
seemed to come back is, yes, we're receptive to that. Come on down and have a look. Which, yeah, when was I down having a look, Richard? What was that, about 2 months ago? Something like that, was it? 3 months ago? I lose track of time.
You were there
It
in
wasn't long ago, I
September.
think.
Was it
Yeah,
September, was it?
probably
Yeah.
probably about 3 months. It feels like about 1,000 centuries, but
Yeah.
so much has happened.
Yeah, and I mean, I was under the impression that, oh, there's a pile of books to buy, which kind of sounds interesting.
Mm.
And then it was sort of kind of said, oh, well, no, you really need everything. So I've ended up with his desk and writing tables and crates full of pictures. And I think I actually own his bed as well, although it was too big and heavy to get in the van to move. We got to deal with that at some other point. And getting the stuff back to the UK was an absolute nightmare. I mean, every mortal thing went wrong. But, you know, we did manage it. We had a little crew. I had a friend of mine who came and bailed me out and drove the van. And yeah, I mean, I've spent the last week picking through about 1,000 books in my shed, trying to fathom out what I've actually got. And yeah, I mean, there's nothing that revolutionary or monumentally valuable, but it's a fabulous little library of stuff. There's some really interesting books of his own there. There's lots of things with his own annotations in, and all the books he was doing the research from in the 70s and 80s when he was doing his writing.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, hopefully, it'll all pan out, that it'll all end up staying together somewhere down the line. You know, I had grand ideas of what to do with it, but like everything, the spanner in the works is always somebody else, isn't it? That you know how it goes. But
Yeah.
you know, I mean, the important thing is it's a really interesting library. It's going to stay together. I've got a list of the few books that have that went to other people. That some I've already got, and most of the others I can replace anyway. It'll just be nice if I can find somewhere to put it and set up a little Henry research library or a Henry room. You know, come and sit at his desk, read his books. If you're a researcher into these sorts of subjects, you know. He can live on a little bit. I mean, that sounds a bit poncy, actually. Obviously, he ain't going to live on because he's dead. But in the sense of he's not kind of forgotten about, and well, somebody has taken the trouble to keep it all together. And as and when I drop dead, my library can be thrown in the pot as well, and somebody in the future can have a load of books to look through.
Right. So it feels as though you're basically I guess, caretaker of another era of just, you know, history of just someone else from the area who started touching on his theories as to what everything was all about. I mean, let's face it, he had some pretty interesting, he's a very interesting man. His interesting research.
You know,
yeah, I mean, just for the record, for anyone out there who doesn't know, obviously Henry's best remembered as being one of the co-authors, along with Bagent and Lee, of The Holy Blood and the Holy Grail.
I've read it. I own it.
Yeah, that was the original bestseller back in the mid to late 80s that first introduced most people out there to the Knights Templar, to the story of the Cathars, and certainly to the Rennes le Chateau mystery.
Right.
Given that all three are really corking stories, great stories, that the book can't really miss, then it goes on beyond that to tease out an elaborate conspiracy which surrounding the Merovingian bloodline.
Right.
And makes the claim that the Merovingian bloodline is in fact the bloodline of Christ and Mary Magdalene.
Right.
At which point the book moves into more speculative territory, to some extent becomes a mouthpiece for Zion, for the Priory of Zion, ostensibly the secret society of Pierre Plantard, which seems to have been either actively colluding with Henry and putting the book together, or basically using Henry to get a very particular message before the public. It's difficult to know to what extent Henry and the Priory were bound up, or whether Henry was being manipulated by them. And yeah,
That's
beyond
interesting.
that, yeah, that's one of the things I always wished Henry had cleared up, as to how much of it Henry made up himself, as opposed to how much of it was, it was handed down to him. A good example being the coded Wren parchments.
Right.
Exactly where those came from and who really cracked the code is something which I guess we'll never know.
Right.
Henry claims they can be decoded through doing this Knights tour by basically doing a series of Knights moves across the parchment, one step forward and one diagonal. But it's pretty much impossible that he could ever have cracked that code on his own. Nor did Henry ever explain to anyone how it could be decoded. We just have to basically take his word for it. And in many cases like that, it's the only logical explanation is he either sucked it out of his thumb completely, or that information was given to him by someone else, and he spent the whole of his life basically refusing to tell anyone where it had come from, or where he'd gotten it from, thus leaving the door open. And beyond that, there's a multitude of different unsubstantiated facts and statements in the course of Holy Blood, which Henry and these co-authors never cleared up. They made a fortune out of the original book, and then the book became clearly the inspiration for Dan Brown's DaVinci Code. In a typical Rennes-le-Château twist, Henry's two co-authors got involved in a high court action against Dan Brown, claiming that he'd plagiarized their works.
That's pretty close.
He clearly did.
Yes.
I'm going to get sued myself by saying that, but it's pretty obvious.
Yeah.
So
It's pretty. I read that and I felt like I was reading the same book almost, twice. I was like, wow. But
plus,
yet,
Dan Brown, goes as far as to anagram their names to make the name of the bad guy. Which is pretty cheeky. The first murder victim's called Sonia, which is a clear model to Rennes-le-Château. The cop in the story is called Bezu, etc. It's really hard to miss all that stuff. But nonetheless, thanks to being fabulously badly advised or just totally misled, they managed to lose the High Court case, which bankrupted them. And both Bagent and Lee were literally dead within about a year of the court case. It wiped them out. So, which sort of bears out the curse of Rennes-le-Château business.
Right.
I think Dan Brown's really the only person to have actually gotten away with trousering money from the mystery and living to tell the tale.
Well, he sure did.
Henry probably did okay out of it in period, didn't he? I mean, what else did Henry do for the last 50 years that bought the nice house and everything else? He had a good little earner out of that, I think.
Yeah, he got a lot of free lunches.
Yeah, he certainly did.
And ducked a lot of questions by habitually looking at his feet and kind of just grumbling if he didn't want to answer.
Well, I have to ask. I mean, the book was written, right? So the basis of the book, I mean, I've been to Rennes. I think it's a pretty interesting place. I find the entire zone to be very, very interesting. It's not one place specifically. I think you just know the whole area is very special. But I mean, this goes back centuries. The whole allure about Rennes, it goes back centuries. I remember just hearing the odd tale even from my own family, because it comes from, we come from the northern France, where a lot of the Templars came from. And a lot of the townspeople had saved. They went and bought land around Rennes. Why? What would make people want to buy parcels of land specifically around this place? Did they know
It's
something that
just,
the rest of us are still trying to catch up with? Like, I don't know.
I
This
mean,
is
the
centuries
thing
ago.
that I found more interesting about Henry's work wasn't so much the sort of the Holy Grail aspect. It was the geometry that he'd been studying, and the pentacle and the placement of things all around the whole area. That to me is far more interesting, because there are so many places that are very clearly put on specific points.
Hmm.
But why? And it's not just one or two, it's dozens of places that line up, dozens and dozens of measurements that are absolutely spot on identical from one place to another.
Right.
I just find it fascinating. And luckily, amongst all of Henry's stuff were all his maps and charts with his celluloid drawings over the top of them of placements that we thought had actually gone, but they were tucked under his bed or piled up somewhere. So there's probably, I don't know, 1, 2, 3, 6, maybe 8 of his working drawings with all his geometric shapes and calculations that we've got to sort of flatten out and make some sense of. But it's just, I don't know, it's just something about the area that is unique. It's very, very hard to say what it is. And I don't think anybody knows. What have we got there? Oh, there we go. Look, yeah.
There's some of them, yeah.
Is that yours or mine? I don't even know what I've got anymore. Is that something to do with me?
Wow. That's
Yeah,
Can you
it's one of
explain
them.
to us what this
It's
is?
one of the diagrams. There's an awful lot of them. That's actually from Woods.
Oh, from David Woods' work. Okay.
We'll get into that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's from Woods. David Wood, basically corresponding with Henry over the shape of the basic pentagram. And it's just to bear out what you're saying about how maybe the most interesting part of the cache is the number of maps and diagrams, and also the number of letters, the bits of correspondence, clippings and photocopies folded into the various books, because it may take you months or years to fully back engineer what's actually in that hall.
Definitely.
Because a simple thing like pencil annotations in the margin of one of the books, or a folded note, can contain a lot of implications. And I think the people going through Henry's personal effects since he's dead, and any number of people have been through his personal effects before we even laid our hands on them. In fact, Henry made the first pick before he passed, and that Henry already picked out all the pieces that he wanted to be preserved, which he felt were the core material that would establish his reputation. And of course, made a very selective choice about what he thought should be preserved. And clearly, there were whole tranches of material that Henry did not want to have preserved, and which nobody else thought were worth retrieving. And that includes the David Wood and the Genesis Geneset material, because it's not coming from Henry. People automatically thought, okay, this is not important, so we'll just leave it to lie in the bottom of the box. Which and a lot of that stuff raises numerous questions, like folded into the presentation copy of Genesis's correspondence between Henry, David Wood, and Kenneth Grant, which takes us straight back into the Typhonian tradition and into Crowley and the OTO again. So all that stuff, it's occult trivia, but certainly very interesting, and very provocative. It's difficult to know what those guys were up to. It's also obvious that they were all fighting each other.
Definitely,
from
yeah.
the tenor of the males. They're often saying, "I know what you said about me," and
Yeah.
etc. etc. And it helps
Wow.
to the uncensored and unedited residue, not just what Henry himself chose, but the entire thing helps give us I think a much broader idea of what was going on in the 80s and 90s, in the early years of this mess.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, I think there's probably about, I'm guessing, 60 or 70 books that the authors had actually sent to Henry, which were all other people's works on the zone or on Rennes-le-Château or on his theories. And lots of them have got his own little scribbles and comments about other people's work, which is just fascinating because, I mean, there's a couple that are just scribbled no in big letters right the way through the first page as being just, but there's an awful lot of research time to sit and go through it and try and put together, well, out of all these books, there are little bits where he's actually almost approving of other people's work. So can you now tack that on to what's already known and somewhere down the line make one amendy? But I don't know. I really don't know.
Mm.
But it was just all of the stuff was sitting in the sort of stable building of Henry's house or Rupert's house just outside Rennes-le-Ban. And it was just like, if somebody doesn't come and shift this is all going to get damp and horrible and end up as a worthless pile of papier-mâché.
It would have been so sad.
Exactly. So it certainly wasn't an economic thing to do, and the disasters of trying to rent a van, flipping heck, it certainly isn't a commercial exercise. I'm just putting it down as a social service is what I'll describe it as.
Right.
But I've come out of it with a little box of really interesting stuff, some signed books by the authors, and just lots of little
Which is fascinating
knickknacks.
Yeah.
So, it's a worthwhile effort. And almost the last thing that came out is, I mean, this whole thing started in, I think it was either 1968 or 69, when Henry was just on holiday in France and bought the Trésor Maudit, which was the first little book he bought as holiday reading. Thinking nothing of it, he just bought it in a souvenir shop. And the one thing that turned up in a box of junk was the original book he bought in 1968 with his book plate in it, signed by Henry.
I love it.
I mean, that's the book that started absolutely everything off and got him going. So it was just great that, oh God, it still exists. And if you watch the TV programs he made, he's sitting there in his garden in the Cotswolds holding the little book and just kind of saying, well, here it is. This is what got me going. And I don't know, it's worth virtually no money.
I love it.
It's just
history.
Great. That's what started the whole Rennes-le-Château industry off. And it's just great that it still exists. It could have just so easily been thrown away as nothing.
Right. So
yeah, I mean,
you feel like he
it's
brought all of that to light. Rennes-le-Château is what it is.
Yeah,
He was
exactly.
instrumental in bringing this little mystery,
Yeah.
to the world.
And Henry was instrumental in marketing the Rennes-le-Château mystery. The
Right.
Blood and the Holy Grail was also instrumental in stapling the bloodline of Christ story to the Rennes-le-Château mystery. I don't think anyone had proposed that Sonia was covering up the bloodline of Christ and Mary before.
Oh, there's a lot of crazy around that, but there's also a lot of questions around that. Okay, you guys, you've studied it. You're in, you spend a lot of time in the area, Richard, especially yourself. What are your thoughts on it? Is it a thing, or did we all just fall into the entire tourist trap? It's like, whoa, it's something.
God, what a question.
I know, but I have my own thoughts on it. I love it. I love it out there. I could, I was looking before the pandemic. I was looking at buying a house down there, and then everything happened. I'm like, crap! I'm just gonna stay right here in my nice little, comfy manor house.
Well, if you stay here for longer than 2 weeks, you'll never leave. We call it a 2-week area.
I was there for a while.
2-week area, there starts to become a real danger that you'll never escape the.
I was not there long enough, and I already knew I was going to buy a house there. And again, the pandemic made me not be able to buy a house there. I
There's
just couldn't
plenty
get
for
over it.
sale. There's
There's
plenty of
plenty for
properties for
sale.
sale.
That's for
It's
sure. And property
Yeah.
values are not going up out here. Everything sort of hit a plateau, and technically they're kind of falling, but no one wants to admit it.
I just love it all. I love the history. I have, but I have friends and family, like, all over different parts of the world, and it's just so hard. But I always say I leave a piece of myself everywhere I go, and I bring a piece with me, and it's always near and dear. And of course, I have family lineage from France, and England, so it's really hard. But I do love the south of France. I do. I love the mountains. I love mountains. So that to me was just so amazing to see them all, and the history. You just feel it. You just, there's no way you can help but absorb all of that amazing energy of the area. It's just vibrant with it. So I'll ask again. I'll ask again. What are your thoughts with this whole Rennes-le-Chateau, Saunière, Merovingian bloodline, the whole 9 yards? What are your thoughts?
Wow, your question got bigger.
It sure did.
Expanded a bit.
Feel free to just throw in whatever.
Well, I think it's interesting that a complete new generation are now looking at it, because Henry and Tim Wallace Murphy and David Woods, who are all now gone, they were the last people that could communicate with the Corbuts, or people who were actually part of the original story.
Right.
And there's nobody left now. I mean, as daft as it sounds, like, we're the old boys of the network, because Annika's gone.
It's been a great dying over the last few years, that's for sure. And I would add into that mix Elizabeth Van Buren, Urani, sorcerer of the River of Colors, Alan Farrell, who in that work of great obsessive compulsive passion, created the whole scale model of Rennes-le-Chateau and in elaborate detail, and was one of the I thought the core eccentrics that really gave that place identity. But they've all checked out within the last few years.
That's sad.
Rennes lost a lot of its original savor. It's no longer the freaky, dangerous, mysterious place that it was in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
Thanks to DaVinci Code and Henry's work, it's now become a slightly past tourist attraction.
Yes.
Which.
Do you feel that's damaged?
There is a younger generation, though, isn't there? I mean, we took a morning out to go to Montségur, because Gary, who came over and drove the van for me, he'd never been. And I mean, when we were at Montségur, bearing in mind it's winter, it's not tourist time, we ran into a couple of young Swedish couple who I would imagine were in their 20s. You remember those people we were talking to in the car park? It's people 30 years younger than us that are fascinated enough to come and bring their camper van up to Montségur in the winter and wanted to talk, wanted to know what it was all about. So there's obviously an intergenerational thing, that something has registered, that it's going to go on and on. Maybe it's not going to be to the level it was in sort of the Henry days and the DaVinci Code days, but it's created enough of a legacy that there are still people coming and looking and scratching their heads. And I think it'll go on forever. I really do.
Well, no smoke without fire.
Yeah, exactly.
It's quite clear that the site itself, the place itself, is still active. I mean, the place is still weird as heck.
I love it. It's a great kind of weird, though. I love it.
I mean, I told Hamilton this. We were standing up on the Rennes Plateau the other night, and we counted. I counted 18 pieces of space junk falling out of the sky and all heading on the same trajectory, flying over the Rennes Plateau and down towards Esperanza, towards Montségur, and another one. I literally ran out of wishes. all long, silent, sparky trails that were there long enough that you could yell, say, look, 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 and give people time to look up, and it'd still be there. So not just
Right.
regular shooting stars.
Right.
This place is full of crazy traffic and earth energy, flashes of light coming up off the ground, etc.,
It's a
etc.
very interesting area for stuff like that. People
Extremely.
have sent me
Yeah.
photographs. A friend of mine who works down there as well, a few months of the year, and he sent me photographs, tons of like with just you could see crafts right over Mutsinger, right over the mountains. There's all like he sent me probably 3 big old clear as day UFO, and one is a woman, and she's just you see her, she's just taking in the energy of the mountain, and when you zoom in, you just see this big black craft right there. I'm like, that's what I'm talking about. That's what I'm going for, you know.
Yeah.
But not everybody really digs the tourism. I remember when I was in Carcassonne, I found a pizza place, and when I find a pizza place, I am there all the time. So it got to know me fairly well. And
Was it the one in the square by
Yes.
the well? Yeah, I've been there, done that.
Isn't it a great place? I
Good
love
pick.
it.
Yeah.
I love it. And an elderly man, like, you know, he made the pizza there, and he comes out and he had all his, you know, friends back there. And he says, "Where are you from?" And I said, "You know, Canada." And he was just like, "Oh, Canada." He loved it. And, you know, he's just holding my hands and talking to me. And he goes, "What are you doing?" And I said, "Well, you know, I fly out. I'm going back to Scotland." And he goes, "Well, have you seen anything here?" So I'm going to Rennes tomorrow. And he goes, "No, no, no, no." We're talking in French, right? Because I can speak French. He goes, "No, no, no." He goes, "Never mind that place." He goes, "Go over to the Cathar City, go up to Carcassonne." I said, I've seen it. I promise I'll go back. He's just really passionate about it. And he's just like, never mind Rennes. Like he really, that was not something that he was even interested in talking about. I said, "Oh, you know, have you been?" And he goes, "I'm just trying to make conversation." And he was not having it at all. He's just like, "No, no, no, forget that place. Forget that place. Go to the Cathar City, go to Carcassonne." I said, "Yeah, I've been, you know."
Well,
So-
Ren's obviously gone through a number of strange phases.
Yes.
I mean, I certainly liked it better before the tourism industry fully kicked in, because I had the privilege of showing up when the Villa Bethany was still an overgrown ruin.
Right.
It was the greatest haunted house ever.
Right.
I mean, when the Tour Magdala was still dilapidated, closed to the public,
So that would
ruined,
be perfect.
left by the diabolic priest, and the original greenhouses and things were still there with the original broken glass from Saunier's time and the original furniture and stuff.
Right.
It was super spooky, and just a wonderful place. And,
It's very active. I've got this in my, you know, tourist pictures. A few interesting things. I was kind of like, "Oh, hello." And one was with a photo. One was a photo of Sonia.
Okay.
So it must have been the red hair. He's probably thinking, "What the hell is that?" You know, who opened the gates of hell? What is this crazy red-haired person? So I don't know, but it was a fascinating photo. Just,
I had a good friend in Rennes, also dead now, unknown, never wrote a book, a lady named Celia Brooke, who was married to Marcel Captier, one of the sons of the Captier family. Then the town gravedigger and the sacristan for the church. This was back in late 80s, summer of 1990. A long time ago. They both passed now. But Celia absolutely loathed Henry. Told me over and over that it was all so wonderful before that horrible little man came along and ruined everything. Was
that's the first time I've heard that comment. That's all I'm going to say.
very Celia issues. But
it has to be hard. I mean, you can't even go. People who live there, you can't even go into the cemetery. It's all closed off now.
Too many grave robbers. Rennes has had a grave robbing problem, probably set in motion by Saunier and Mary de Narnau, who were robbing the graves themselves. So it's only a sort of karmic that Sonia's grave ended up getting robbed, and Sonia's body was moved from one grave to another and exhumed by one of the town Marys. In fact, it was Marcel Captier who moved it in a wheelbarrow from his original to where it is now,
In
allegedly.
a wheelbarrow. Come on, let's
Really?
go.
Yeah,
Oh,
true. And there's
okay.
the Mary also stole the stuff that was buried with Sonia, which is
Wow.
when Sonia's rosary and chapbook and things went missing, and then there's the matter of Sonia's cross, which was in Urani's possession for a while. So
Right.
at some point Sonia had his own grave robbed, which is
Wow.
just par for the course.
Wow. I
Wow,
didn't
there's
know
some
that.
inside information I most certainly did not know.
Well,
but
I didn't know that either. God, that's fascinating. How did Urani end up with that then?
He got it from Elizabeth Van Buren,
Right.
which is well inside information. But as they're all dead now, it doesn't really matter.
Right.
But it was a dearly cherished gift from Elizabeth. You can see it in the Otherworld documentary hanging to the left of him in the interviews.
Wow.
It's never remarked on, but it was Sonia's personal cross.
Sonia's. Wow. Okay.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
Just,
No, I mean, there's just something about the area that it does draw you back. It certainly does. Whether, it's really hard to explain. It's just a feeling that you get that when you're there, even if you're just walking through the village on your own or walking through Renleban going to get a croissant in the morning, it's just got this kind of something about it that's like, it's just interesting. It's just really hard to try and explain it. You either get it or you don't.
That's exactly right.
Yeah.
That's exactly right. I stayed in a small town called Malv, and I loved it. Because I had a friend traveling, and she's like, I would say, you're my travel guru. This is what I want to do. This is where I want to stay. Make it happen.
Okay.
And she does. And she goes, I'm going to take you to this cool little town called Malv. And I loved it because the building has been redone, and it goes back to the 12th century. And then the town, there's only like 800 people in town, and they all put their money together for years and bought the castle. So the building I was staying in, I just opened the shutters and I'd be staring at this castle. And she says, I'd let you in. She goes, but we have the people from Louvre here. I'm like, really? She goes, when we opened it, it'd been closed for 100 years, She goes, when we opened it, we found the most well-preserved collection of Renaissance art in all of France, they were saying. But it was on the walls. So they were in there documenting and doing preservation work on it. And she was showing me photographs. And I was just, I have the book here somewhere. She said, we did a little flyer because so many people who come here are so fascinated with it. And I love Renaissance stuff. So I'm looking at this going, this has been hidden away all this time. It's probably open by now, because this was a while back. But I thought, how amazing is that? There's little secrets, little gems that are hidden away, and you don't hear about it unless you're someone like me, who I love going to these little obscure, I have to say, any place old. If it's haunted, it's exceptional. But if it's not, and this was, which was a bonus, all night I'm being kept up by walking around. It's just fantastic. But, I just love the history. I love to absorb that energy. I like to just take it in because I'm not a beach goer. If I go someplace, damn it, I want to learn the history. I want to be part of the culture. I want to get into the food. I want to just see the architecture. I want to feel the stone. That's for me. That's a vacation. My friends made me go to Greece one time on a beach, and I'm just like, kill me, just kill me. So instead I wandered off, and I ended up in someplace in the core in Athens, and they were digging, they were excavating, and I'm just watching them. I'm like, yeah, for real? Long nails, everything. Just sat there with my little freaking toothbrush for hours. That's just the best time of my life. That to me is a vacation. So you come into the south of France, any area, I'm the same when I'm in the UK. You just take it in. There's so much. And how much are we not being told? The tourists are never told.
Oh, nothing at all.
Nothing at all. I mean, less and less,
Yes.
which is another reason why I think what Hamilton's doing with Henry's stuff is vital, because throughout all this, was certainly with the great dying and the sort of the tabula rasa approach taken by the folk who have been basically manipulating cancel culture to take a bunch of these things down. I've become very concerned about making certain that for the generations that do come after us, that the legacy of these folk is preserved in some way. And this includes the material from Urani, the little sorcerer. It includes the material from David Wood and the Genesis stuff. A lot of stuff that's not just from Henry, Alan Farrell's work, which really needs to be out there. Which, as far as I know, has never been digitized, is completely not available on the internet in any form. Just an absolute treasure trove of material, and I would certainly like to feel that stuff will be available in some form in 100 years from now.
Do you guys feel there's more research to be found within that same, like, let's use Henry stuff, for example, and these other people too, if it applies, if there's access? Do you think that in their research that there is more information that they just never did anything with, that maybe you guys could elaborate?
Well, I think, bear in mind when Henry and his crew were doing their research in the sort of 70s through to the mid 80s, really, they actually had to do the legwork. You had to go to an archive. You had to sit and wade through books for eternity. Doing the same thing today, we can all sit at home and fiddle around on Google and virtually everything will come up. So the lives now are much easier. I think what you might find with the likes of Henry's material and the kind of the characters Richard's talking about is that perhaps there isn't anything within the boxes of paperwork, but like Richard said, you only need a little scribbled note in the margin of a book that all of a sudden you spotted a connection that wasn't there before, that, hang on a minute, I can now sit and Google this, this and this, which couldn't have been done 30 years ago. So, I think there's every possibility that some sort of bright spark can start pulling some new things together, but particularly about the whole geometry thing of Wren and, Henry and David would have probably identified as much of the measurements as possible. But nobody's actually come up with any concept of why. Nobody has. Henry didn't. David Wood didn't. It was just, well, this is the way it is. I think the next step forward is to actually try and postulate on why. Why were people hundreds, maybe even thousands of years ago going to so much effort to align all of these strange things and build on specific points? I've not heard a single plausible explanation, nothing. There's got to be a reason.
Well, it goes off the rails pretty fast in terms of what is considered to be plausible, but pretty much all of that material goes herring into pretty strongly occult material, and I think Woods and folk all arrive at the notion that it's either that it's left behind by some pre-human, ultra-dimensional, possibly creator species, like something analogous to Lovecraft's Great Old Ones, like Gran Ancien. Because some of it's so precise that you can't move mountains and things around. Some of that stuff doesn't feel human. Time and again here in the zone, you've got stuff where there's human remains and human stonework, and it bleeds into natural formations over and over again. The way that rock strata turn into stone walls and things, trying to work out what's actually built by human hands and what's not is tricky. There's structures out there which are super odd, which seem way too regular to be just regular, normal geographic anomalies. Like, for instance, that door in the rock that I think I showed you last time. Very, 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 very regular. The kind of impossible to say whether it's carved or fully natural. And
calcified.
Yeah, taken as a whole as well. Just it's always been for me the really more fun than Dungeons and Dragons. It's been one of the best ongoing treasure hunts, treasure I guess live action role playing games that I've ever been part of, because
Right.
There's a question just popped up. Are the measured sites lined up with ley lines? Again, I don't know the answer to that. I mean, has anybody tried to correlate the known ley lines and overlay them against Henry's geometry? I don't know. That would certainly be a fascinating thing to look, because, I mean, a ley line, you know, so much in ley lines right across Europe line up, and it was the ancients' way of doing things, wasn't it? It was the power points and the earth energies. That would actually be a very interesting thing to look at. I don't recall reading anything about that.
Now, I'd love to superimpose more of these maps on top of each other.
Yeah,
it'd be lovely to compare and contrast the work of Urani, who Lincoln assumed was insane, with Henry's work, with Woods's work. There was a precursor to all of them, who a number of precursors, because I think people have been doing this for hundreds of years. It's only just surfaced in our generation, but there certainly have been even previous paperback books, and the For Holy Blood and the Holy Grail that have broached the same subject matter. And I'm thinking of it. There's a pretty obscure French writer named G.M. Dumeru, who's never been translated into English, who was all his pentagrams are Montsegur centric. Urani swore by Dumeru and had a heavily annotated copy of his work, which he was always brandishing, and hated Woods. And Urani's enemy was Bemi, who swears by Woods's work and excoriates the rest of the stuff. I think they've been so busy each other that I doubt anyone's bothered to compare notes and actually superimpose the different grids on top of each other, and see what
that'd be interesting.
Yeah. Well, the other thing, you could take that back a little bit further. If you just plotted the positions of all of the sort of Neolithic and Elder Stone circles and the individual mynheers, do they correlate with anything? Again, I don't think anybody's done that, have they? Or not that I've seen.
Well, it's a matter also of doing the work.
Well, exactly, that's it. Somebody's got to do it.
Trying to plot the position of all those those stone circles. We've only identified a handful of those things. There's undoubtedly a huge amount of stuff out there underneath the trees and underneath the mulch of the forest floor that we've got no idea about yet.
Yeah, because I mean, like you say, if you could plot all of that on a piece of clear celluloid and then overlay that on the maps of Henry's calculations and David Wood's calculations, are you going to end up with exactly the same thing, but they're 6,000 years older? We don't know.
Yeah, I mean, you probably go mental.
Yeah. You without any doubt, you go start raving mad, and it'll take you 50 years. Yeah.
normal consciousness in the course of it. And I think a lot of folk come to the very edge of this. I imagine, from what I'm seeing from Henry's notes and what he's left to us, he seems to have gone so far, and that he's able to chart the pentagram and he sees the alignments. But then I think he stopped out of a genuine fear or an inability to go further into speculating as to how that could be possible.
The fear to me is interesting. Why do you think there would be a fear?
So I think it's a step. It's a step into the beyond. It's maybe more helpful if one's a fiction writer. It's a step into a supernatural universe, which I don't think Henry was prepared to do. He kept repeating all he was interested in was demonstrable proofs, which was Henry's catchphrase.
Do you think he might have had an experience at all that maybe gave him, gave him that fear? Let's face it, there's power spots all over freaking south of France, and I would think that Rennes-le-Chateau would be no different, because he seemed to put Rennes as a bit of a beacon, as a bit of a like the crown jewel in the whole area, you know, and maybe
It seems to
that's
be the focal point, doesn't it? He seems to base an awful lot of his ideas and measurements that's the focus of everything, certainly.
around it. Yeah. It was almost like the jewel in the crown, and everything
Yeah.
sort of stemmed from there. Here, Bart's got a couple comments. He works in the south of France. I think Bart and
No, we
Richard
know him.
actually met.
Mm.
Yeah. I'm not
Yeah,
crazy about RLC being so groomed these days and charging admission, yet I still have phenomenal experiences there as an intuitive doing tours. The one thing I observed was the sites in general are designated to serve the people. There's an element of exchange between sites and people. Yeah.
Well, what's certainly true is that the places remain, and the whatever telluric or cosmotelluric power or currents that's going through them, that's still active. The Ren Plateau is still extremely active on I guess on an intuitive level, on a supernatural level,
Oh,
and
yeah.
you know, I was assuming it was a bit of a busted flush because I'm getting old.
Right.
Nonetheless, in the course of this crazy conflict over the last couple of years, I found myself marooned here in the zone, and folk have reappraised me of my errors. It's like, no, come and take a look. And being up on the Ren Plateau at say Elizabeth Van Buren's point where she was trying to talk to the space brethren back in the 80s, in the middle of a full-on crazy electrical storm like I
Oh,
was.
like the Cassiopeans?
Yeah,
I remember that. Yeah.
It's really awesome. It's still incredible.
They're,
Despite tourism, and,
yeah.
and I think touching on the tourism business, one of the problems they're having out here, which is part of the area's schizophrenia, really, is that they kind of rely on the tourism. Like Rennes got its own little Rennes the Chateau industry going on up there.
It does. It does.
Rennes the Chateau wine and paperweights and
I have to
fridge
say, I didn't pay anything to go. Like, I went in and I was pretty much, you know, carte blanche. Don't ask me why. I didn't know anybody there. Just,
as it should be. There's certain things in life that one should never pay for. And
yeah, maybe it, yeah, I have no explanation, you know. I just sort of walked in and, you know, mind you, you know, I was a pretty good patron in the gift shop. So maybe it was just like, oh yes, go on in. It's like, great, thank you. Literally got like to see pretty much anything I wanted to see. But again, you know, I like the artwork
where
and
it
things like
becomes
that.
schizophrenic for me is that, and I got this from the mairie, from the mayor of Rennes le Chateau in the mairie's words. They want to encourage more tourism, but they would like to encourage more normal tourists.
Right.
Meaning that
I lose then because I'm so not normal in any way.
yeah, it's just a trick which is impossible really to pull off, because regular normal people don't really want to go to places which are associated with diabolic medieval mysteries. Regular
love it.
normal tourists want to go to the beaches and want to go to the wine cellars, but they're also kind of terrified of the people who would be interested in the area. So it's tricky. They're trying to make it shinier and more normal and make it look like
anybody who loves a good mystery, which would be all over that area. I mean, it's the whole area. It's just a big place of history, and what follows some of that is mystery. And Ren, I think it's because it's been built to be that way. Of course, it has it. You know, it's just phenomenal energy in that place. But then so does the entire area. I don't think there's any area I was in where I didn't feel just enamored by how it felt. You know, but mind you, I get really stupid around like Gothic arches and you know, and stone buildings, and I just love. I just, you know, love going back in time. I just love that feel of an area that still feels like you can step back a few hundred years. Everything, even if you commercialize it, there's still parts of it that you can really feel what it was, you know, and deep down what it still is.
Yeah, capitalism can't really destroy it any more
No,
than the Inquisition could destroy it.
no,
The
exactly.
Inquisition can destroy all the books, just like cancel culture, but you can't move mountains.
You can't.
You
Yeah.
can't change the passage of the seasons. The
It-
sun will still rise in the same place at the summer solstice, regardless of the Inquisition.
and it's
The
oral
full
history.
moon will happen once a month, and you
Mm,
can't change that stuff. And those sites are still charged and
yes.
still a potent place to be.
But
Whether
you need to pass down the information, like through oral history. The books will come and go, but I mean, when you look at you guys, prime examples of history and your knowledge, that's what people can't afford to lose. I mean,
I've often, yeah, it's
that's
often bugged me. And another problem there is that a lot of it, you still actually have to be there to know it. Like I can't give directions to half these places,
right.
and
Right.
even after all these years, we're still exploring. I mean,
You're still a
this
student, basically.
yeah,
Yeah.
this summer I went back up to the Devil's Lake, for instance, from the which Otto talks about, Otto Rahn in Crusade Against the Grail. It's 3,500 meters up the Pic Saint Barthélemy, so I
Right.
try not to go back too often.
No.
I made a return visit this summer, and in the course of it, got lost in the mist on the mountaintop. Missed the right path down, ended up on the wrong flank of the mountain, then tried to get back to the Devil's Lake by making a traverse across the front of the mountain, slipped and fell on the front of it, ended up in a valley on the front of the mountain.
We just can't leave you alone at all, can we?
Right, but the valley ended up
Maybe
in
unattended.
yeah, is the
Yeah.
valley that Otto Rahn's talking about, and he refers to this enchanted valley in Crusade Against the Grail. I thought it was a manner of speech, but I just missed it all those years. It was only when we got lost in the mist and I fell into the damn thing. It was like, oh damn, okay, this is actually a place
We are.
writing about. I've just up until now I haven't found the darn thing yet.
That's funny.
But I couldn't possibly give you directions as to how to get back there.
Right.
There's a lot of the caves are like that too. How do you explain to someone where the entrance is to some of these caves? You go up this path as far as that gnarled tree, and then take a left at the rock, and then take another right at the tree, and that stuff we only know because somebody showed us. Like Marcel the Great, to go back at the
You just have to
beginning.
do like the indigenous, create a little twist or a gnarl and a little twig
Yeah.
and watch it grow up to be this big gnarl.
Yeah, little signpost. Yeah.
Exactly.
Well, what somebody's got to do is get the GPS coordinates.
What?
Yeah.
That's not fun.
Yeah.
No, that's so
No, but if you had
creativity.
the GPS, you could create a Holy Grail app,
There would-
and then you wouldn't need me or Hamilton anymore. You wouldn't need
No.
to actually
Well-
tell you where the spots were if you had the grid references.
Something
Actually,
along the lines, though, it
That
goes
would be
beyond
interesting to do that.
just. It goes beyond just direction, though. I would want I would be more interested in just show me, tell me. I can retain anything. That is said to me. So especially if it's something I'm interested in, which is history, I retain everything. Sissy says one has to be circumspect. There's a dark
Yeah, I
side
agree.
to this, not something to fool around with if not informed. I agree.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Yeah.
Definitely. 100%.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
bouncing around between comments, just trying to keep up.
Yeah,
Please
So
do.
yeah, so
Thanks to Cece as well for buying Henry lunch.
yep. No.
Oh,
Steve
dear.
says you go back, if back in ancient times, I don't think they had any way of knowing there were actually ley lines underground without being given some type of knowledge and guidance, knowing exactly where to put all of these different structures and stones. Well, yeah, I mean, I think they followed the stars more than they would have. I mean, I don't know. Energy lines, there are power spots all over the world. The ancients knew. They would have known where these places were. I mean, they built temples there. They built monuments there. There's got to be something to it there. Call me crazy.
Yeah, presumably they had some form of feng shui, which is the same thing by another name.
That's right. That could do it.
Yeah, imperial dragon paths. The concept of ley lines, I think, doesn't come along until quite recently, until Watkins's book,
Mhm.
the old straight track, I
Right.
believe, is the one that gives it the name ley lines, and that's only because he rules a line through all the towns he rules a line through end with the suffix ley,
Right.
Osterley, etc. And there's nobody lays
Right.
that they became ley lines, and I don't think it was until somewhere in the 60s or the 70s with the appearance of the view over Atlantis that
Mm.
the ley lines were then assumed to be currents of cosmotelluric energy rather
Mhm.
than the navigational alignments. But certainly there was stuff before that. I mean, that's why, Feng Shui and things seem to be driving at the same ideas, but through a
Like
different
dowsing.
language. This
Yeah, it
notion of
does. Yeah,
cards.
that's true.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I've done it. There's an interesting place not a million miles from my house,
Right.
that I was taken up there by somebody, and we did exactly that. We got the dowsing rods out, and without being told, it was like, oh God, this is odd. And I mean, we could plot exactly where they crossed over, and it's absolutely north to south alignment.
Mm.
It's, you don't know what it is or why it is, but there is some form of energy line or earth energy or something. And I mean, everybody who's been up there has found the same thing, and
Mm.
the people who are really into it, you can plot these lines that flow almost straight through England in some cases, I mean, north to south,
Mm.
and I'm sure they're the same in France if somebody actually went and plotted them
Yes.
without
Yeah.
any question.
Yeah. Oh, I don't doubt it. Let's switch gears a little bit. Okay. I'm going to go back to one of Sissy's questions.
I think we ought to say something complimentary about the wonderful Folgers coffee people, because you've forgotten, haven't you?
I haven't. I was letting you speak, actually. I'm a good host. I know. Okay, okay, we're going to just do our. I don't do it as well as Amelia. I'm not used to having to do it midway. But if you guys are just tuning in, you are tuning into the Outer Realm. We are broadcasting live on the United Public Radio Network, 105.3 and 107.7 FM in the beautiful city of New Orleans, fully sponsored by the amazing people over at Folgers. Come on, Hamilton. Get that up there.
Sorry, yeah, the wonderful friends of ours at Folgers
Right.
Coffee. Yeah, marvelous.
That's right.
Wonderful people. Yeah,
that's right. So then we've got Folgers, who have been, again, instrumental in us being here 2 nights a week. Thank you very much. And big thank you to Justin Snicker, the sonic surgeon, Dr. Snick, who is responsible for the intro and the outro. Big thank you to Steve McGinnis, who is the artist behind all of our logos, and his creativity. When I say, this is what I want, this is what I get. So perfect.
Brilliant.
Check him out. Yeah. So tonight, of course, we're all here to listen to our friends and regular guests pretty much now. They're almost like co-hosts here so much. Hamilton White and Richard Stanley, who we love. And the chat room is lighting up. And we've got all kinds of people who are tuning in. And I have no doubt that there are millions of people tuning in, actually. So, yeah.
Good. Well, bring them on, because this coffee's great, and
fabulous.
I love it. I love it. I love it.
In the morning, yeah, ain't nothing going on. I'm ready for any questions I got.
Yeah, because people, we need to remember that it's very late for Hamilton and for Richard right now on the other side of the world, because there's actually, what, an hour? Is it 2 hours between France and England? I think it's an hour, right?
It's an hour, isn't it? I think France and England. I don't know, what time is it? It's about 3:30 in England. What time is it over with you?
Hang on, it's 4:30 here in the
There we go. Okay, so don't tell me these guys aren't champions. They're here. They're doing this live. Okay, Cece had a question we're going to go back to. She wanted to know. There we go. I'm going to put it right up for you guys. There we go. Is the Otto Rahn book still on hold? Talk about that, Richard.
Richard?
Yeah, I'm going to talk about that. Okay, so I've been struggling mightily to get this book to the public. And here we're talking about The Last Crusade, the quest for SS Obersturmführer Otto Rahn, which is the full encapsulation of the 30 years that I've been on the case, including a lot of the best stuff dug up out of the 10 years that I was at Montsegur. There's a fair amount of stuff in there. It's densely researched. It's kind of a bumper book for future mystery hunters, because I tried to put as many primary sources and maps and genealogies and stuff in there for the folk who come after me to be able to work with. But we do need to find a way of reproducing it and getting it to the public, because otherwise, like Henry or Urani's stuff, if it dies with me, it's no damn use.
Exactly.
So, we do need to get it out there. And I've gotten so superstitious about the number of things that have stopped that from happening over the last little long while, that until we succeed in actually getting that manuscript out there, I'm going to remain with my dukes up, because thus far, we haven't been able to get the blessed thing published, which is the current reason being the paper shortage, thanks to the war in the Ukraine, and the skyrocketing cost of everything, which is
Crazy.
just trying to buy printer ink out here is maddening. I mean, it's gone up
really
40 to 60 euros just for an ink cartridge, and the cost of the paper
Same
and
here.
the
They're expensive.
to try and actually print the damn book and keep it within a range where anyone can afford it, or and still have any chance of actually recouping and balancing the books has been so far the struggle. It's we don't want to be in a position where we have to actively pay folk in order to get the book out there, because we can't subsidize it.
No. That's tough. That's a tough spot to be in.
We do need to put that material out there. And just like trying to actually get the stones classified and analyzed, I'd be very sorry if I end up exiting this life and without achieving those objectives. So they're definitely serious boxes I would like to tick and things on my bucket list.
Right.
And I mean, I think it's now having to look at going down the print on demand route, which a lot of sort of authors seem to be going down. It just simply isn't possible for anybody to go out and print the type of book that this is, that's 450 odd pages, 250 photographs. You're printing an encyclopedia.
Yes.
The actual cost to produce a book is 50% more than you're ever going to retail it for.
It's true.
The only way that it seems to be plausible now is this print on demand, that I'm not entirely sure how it works, but everybody is telling me this is what you need to go and do. And I think if something doesn't happen within the next sort of month, 2 months, I don't think there's any other way around it. We've really got to look at that. And, it's annoying, because you'd like to have a pile of 50 books and go somewhere and have a little do and an event and, do a proper old-fashioned book launch.
I think you would just have to order a bit more, that's all. Like for when you had an event, you just bite the bullet, and without having a huge surplus just sitting there.
I mean, maybe that works if you can order 50 books and they're a little bit more expensive. You'd swallow it, but you can't go and do a minimum order of 1,000 books at £20 a book for a book that's going to retail at £20. It's just like, oh, hang on a minute. It's very, very difficult. So I don't know. I mean, that's one of the first jobs on the job sheet for January, is go and learn about print on demand, and let's actually sit and talk to people who've done it, and can we make it work that way?
Yeah, it's been a running problem, I think, throughout the entire mystery, because really I don't think anyone's been preserving any of this material.
Not at all.
Has had any real interest in it. I mean, Hamilton, you found that, I mean, initially we wanted to keep Henry's books in the zone. Initially, the plan was to try to create some kind of Henry Lincoln room or a place here in the zone where material could be preserved and where people could have access to it. To which we encountered a complete, and utter lack of interest.
That's crazy. I'm gobsmacked with that. I just am. I'm completely gobsmacked with that.
Alan Farrell's son can't get his dad's work printed for the same reason that I can't get the Otto Rahn book printed. It's too expensive.
Wow.
And wants to try and get his dad's stuff out there. None of it's digitized, so not available. There's thousands of pages of Urani's mad stuff, which lives only on my hard drive, which is again not available to anyone. And I think there's only one or two of Woods's diagrams out there on the internet, or 90% of it is again not available on Google search. Most of the stuff is in danger of disappearing, or unless it's
that would be tragic
by private collectors, like yourself, Hamilton. And outside of private collections, there's no database, no museum, no library, no foundation, and no structure for actually preserving this unruly body of data.
Yeah, I mean the sort of possible little light at the end of the tunnel is Sean Williamson, who inherited all of Andrew Sinclair's paperwork. He's been trying to find something to do with that. And I think he's talking to some place up in Scotland with a view to, well, can we get Andrew's stuff up in Scotland in some institution? And there was a vague idea that, well, maybe that would work if you could get Henry's stuff up there and combine the two together, maybe. So I don't know. I've left that in Sean's court to sort of chase up. He's back in Scotland now for the next 6 months. You know, maybe that would work if there's a Scottish institution that would take it on. I'm not fixed on who has it or where it goes. It just needs to be of some use. Yeah, exactly.
To see great researchers end up having their information just put out there. I'm just going to touch on a couple questions. One, Bart is asking, how did the Knights Templar see this as a holy land in the zone? It's a good question.
That's a hard question. And I think that's one of the questions that would be absolutely fascinating to have an answer to.
There we go. They're everywhere.
For some reason they did. I mean, the density of Templar castles in and around the zone area is vastly disproportionate to anywhere else.
Right.
You know, the traditional thing with castle building is you built a castle a day's ride from another castle, so as you always had somewhere to stay when it got dark.
That's right.
Why do you need a castle and another castle on the end of the pentagram that's a 2-hour ride? I don't know.
Yes.
I really don't know.
There's another little mystery, isn't there?
You know, I mean, there's an argument that says, well, when you go back in history, the border between France and Spain was changing frequently, and there was little incursions, and the French built castles to keep the Spaniards out.
Right.
But that isn't really what the Templars were doing. They were an entirely independent little gang of people doing their own things and building their own castles. They weren't particularly aligned and getting involved in that kind of warfare. But that doesn't explain why they needed so many castles. Why did they need to look over passes and certain areas from every angle? Don't know. Wish I did know.
Richard, what do you think?
Well, I guess the other question we talked earlier on was to do with this our view on the Mary Magdalene issue, Mary M, and the Merovingian bloodline.
Right.
And there's certainly folk who believe it.
Right.
I think the evidence is strong that there was some kind of proto-Christian baptismal cult out here. Whether it was whether Mary Magdalene herself was really here, we'll never know, because one of the things we do not have their DNA. I mean, no one has ever been able to come up with the DNA of Christ or Mary Magdalene. There's literally no way of actually proving the claims of the different alleged descendants of Christ and Mary Magdalene, because there's
Correct, correct.
We can't say whether anyone is carrying Christ's DNA or not.
Yeah, you're
So,
not wrong.
yeah, whether the Templars were here to guard the bloodline or not, that's a theory that a lot of people put forth as a reason for the Templars being here.
Mm-hmm.
And then whether that bloodline exists and whether it's the blood of Christ and Mary Magdalene or the blood of something else is an open question.
Is there
Oh
something
God, we
else?
did not have enough time to talk about this. I'm with King Keith. There goes part 2. Yes, I think we
No
should
problem.
definitely do a part 2.
Definitely. You know,
Oh,
I mean,
hell to the yes.
why do you build a castle anywhere? You either build it for your own safety, or you build it because it's guarding something within an area that needs guarding, be
I
it
agree. Yes.
valuables, be it property, be it farmland. I don't know. You
Knowledge.
don't go to the trouble of building all of these places unless there's a specific reason for it. You know, I don't know. It's just fascinating.
It kind of goes back to the story that I had heard, you know, like even from my grandfather, that goes way back, when people from this town went in and bought up all these little parcels of land around Rennes Chateau. And it was a Templar town. Templars did come from this area in northern France. So it makes you wonder, you know, like, why? Maybe it's the same ideas as you have these Templars building, and everything's, according to Henry, focuses right back to Rennes, even though it's not like technically at the center, you know, like I find the other mountains are a lot more powerful with energy.
Well, there's always been, certainly in the earlier days when I was here, there was a constant bickering going on between different parties as to which place was the true power point and where the true treasure was, and it kind of, there's constant bickering between Rennes Chateau and Bucharest, between Bucharest and Montsegur. Cardou's a heck of a thing, and Bezou is where the
They're all
Templar,
powerful places.
which I think why we ended up utilizing the term the zone to cover the whole area, because
keep everybody happy.
calling it the Rennes Chateau mystery, or the Bucharest phenomena. It made more sense to just assume the entire region is a bit off, and it's quite likely that some of the most powerful places are the ones that get written about the least, like
That's true.
the Tabor, that big mountain behind Montsegur that's being vaporized by the Imris group, is a heck of a thing. And,
Well, again, I mean,
Hamilton goes quiet. Okay, I want in.
No,
What am I not being told?
No, it is that. It is what Richard says. Sometimes it's the places you've never even heard of. I mean, down in the summer, we went up to a little tiny church called Saint Salvaire, which is 3 or 4 miles up a road from Alet-le-Bain. I'd never even heard of it. And it's nothing special to look at. It's a little tiny, almost abandoned hamlet. It's a tiny little church. You know, I think they're saying it's sort of Middle Ages, but it's certainly got earlier elements to it. And it's all open. There's not a lot in it, but when you go in, almost as you come through the door, there's the most peculiar column just sticking out of the floor. And it's not symmetrical to the building. It just sticks out of the floor, sort of 10 foot from the door. And I mean, if you're in the least bit sensitive to energies, whoa, it's like putting your hand on an electric fence. Yeah. And I mean, you know, I'd never even heard of the place, but it had got so much about it. But I mean, I have now read in some of Henry's works, that was one of the places he would take selected people to see if they would pick something up from it. But you'd never find it by accident. I mean, it's up a little country lane. And you drive past it, it just looks like a very dull, nothing, but wow, it's so pokey. It
Right.
really is.
Mhm.
And I mean, I've read some other things subsequently of other people who've been up there,
Mm.
and exactly the same thing. It's whatever this column is, the church has obviously been built around it. It's either been some sort of early Christian site, it could have been a pre-Christian site. Nobody knows again. They think the floor is possibly Roman, but
Mm.
if you were building a church, common sense tells you it would all be symmetrical. And if you're building it around this powerful thing, it would be in the primary place at the altar or right in the middle. And it's not. It's just this kind of complete random. It's
It's just
really
bizarre.
peculiar.
It's
But it's
like bizarre.
fantastic. It
Yeah.
really is
Yeah.
wonderful.
I can
Mhm.
see you've got the bug.
Yeah,
It's
totally.
just craziness.
Totally. I think we need a Folgers sponsored outside broadcast for next year, a live broadcast from some interesting places around Europe.
Well, maybe you guys need to just, get your own show on the network. I know somebody who can probably make that happen. And maybe we could see about Folger sponsoring you. Because here's the cool thing is that we're opening up a bunch of daytime slots, which would be more evening time for you guys. So you would hit prime
Oh,
time
wow.
out your neck of the woods.
Wow.
Oh, yeah, but this 3 a.m. is actually a great time for me to be doing
And
it.
Hamilton's like, nuh-uh.
The zone is silent. There's no traffic out there. Everyone's, ain't nothing going on. There's no one can possibly attack my perimeter fence. I'm completely safe to concentrate on it. Everyone out there is either asleep or dead.
But that means you would have to be doing a show like in my time spot, and I don't really think I'm ready to give it up yet.
No, I don't think you should.
Oh, you're right.
No,
Yeah,
definitely
I kind of like it, like Amelia and I've kind of grown attached to our time spaces. But no,
I don't think we'd be any good at doing this without you.
Yeah, I agree. God knows what mess we get into left on our own devices or getting somebody else in. Or...
Oh gosh, leave you two alone at your own devices. Can we say shenanigans? Regular shenanigans.
You can try.
No, we don't pick them. They sure pick us.
That's true. Oh God, they don't off. They really do. But, like a lot of things are slowly getting ironed out. I think next year should be a little bit more peaceful. Put it that way.
Right.
Well, no, one way or the other, they will be a little bit more peaceful because they are going to be sorted out.
Okay, let's talk about that because we've got about 10 minutes to finish up our 2 hours. So what do you want to put out there, you guys? You go.
What do we want to put out? Rich, I don't know. What do we want to put out there? What do you think?
I want to put out there. Wow, there's just so much. But I mean, I guess we just have to ration it. I mean,
well, you're back on February 23rd. Okay, everybody, mark your calendars because I know people are saying when's part 2.
Yeah, if I can just reduce this to a nutshell, one thing that really burns me up is that we've seen an awful lot of shows out there. And here I'm thinking Oak Island and Ancient who are basically basically giving us show after show based on little more than a bent nail or pure supposition. And in the meantime, we've got our asses parked on reams of research. Not only that, actual artifacts. Hamilton's sitting on some things which I can't talk about, but which I can't believe we cannot put before the public. It's the same. We've already had the example of the meteoric, the black stones runs meteoric grail. We cannot get that analyzed. We can't. So far, I've not found anyone who's prepared to classify them or they exist. And I would like someone to prove they exist and to either tell them what they are or to give them a scientific name and place them within a known taxonomy because they physically
categorize them in one form or another.
There
make
are
a decision.
Artifacts in certainly in Hamilton's possession and a few bits and pieces here, which I think are provide proof for some extremely wild material, like some of the stuff you're sitting on, Hamilton, is
I mean, there is an agenda, for what's acceptable to be put on normal, regular broadcasting. The agenda is set, and they will mould you around it, and it just doesn't actually work unless you want to sell out. I mean, I think the answer is perhaps trying to get some form of online, what do you call it? Is it Patreon or even if it's a YouTube channel, and resurrect the whole Lost Relic-y things, but actually do it where me and Carl and Richard and anybody else who's involved with it, where you can actually stand there and present facts as opposed to being.
This network is going to Roku.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I mean,
starting in January. Surprise.
Okay. I mean, the general broadcasting media just won't take on provable facts. They would rather have sensationalized nonsense than actually let you stand there and go, right, I've got this. It doesn't actually fit the agenda at the moment, but here it is. It's on the table. We can actually put it on the table and show it to you. So it does exist. It's just not what the regular broadcast media seems to want.
You almost have to go independent. Like I said, the network is going to Roku. That'll take us to Apple TV. That'll take us to Amazon. That will take us to Samsung TV. We're just expanding like crazy because there's no censorship, because we can put what we want on it.
Yeah.
And that's what I think you need to do.
I think you're right. If I can pick that up, I think it's beyond or it's just the what the template that the broadcasters, Netflix and the History Channel try and force onto the material, because some of the stuff is truly challenging. I mean, if that's a hitherto unidentified mineral element, or if you have actual proof of ancient Jewish usage of Temple Mount, or the site of the Temple of Solomon, or artifacts from the bottom of the ocean that are technological anomalies that it's not just that we can't get those things onto television. Some of these things, they are real, and we can prove they are real. And if anyone is prepared to actually do the analysis and to do the science, I think could be potentially interesting. I'd hate to have a new mineral element and fail to have it identified in my lifetime. And things like those, the anomalous technology taken from the ocean floor, unless that's brought into the public consciousness, it'll end up in a shoebox once we're dead. And
it's true. You have to do something with it.
Stuff needs to be placed before the public while we're still breathing.
I agree with you.
We tried, me and Carl, with the relic-y thing. We've got some fabulous wartime stories. I mean, some of the topics that we've tried to cover. Nothing, you just get total blank. And I mean, stuff's cropping up all the time. I mean, I'm not actively seeking anything at the moment. I just don't need it. I've got so much around me. But when you're known as to, we know who you are. I mean, I had a guy turn up here on Christmas Eve, who's a mate of mine I don't see very often. Oh, we'd heard you're back in town. We thought we'd pay you a visit. Out comes a polythene bag. Oh, got something. We don't know what to do. Can you deal with this for us? Which is, hang on, give me a sec.
I love show and tell. And
I love it.
Henry was all about demonstrable proofs.
Oh, all right.
Direct from the family of a survivor of one of the concentration camps. It's been hidden in the loft since 1945. Fantastic story. I've got 4 sets of these uniforms. Everyone's got a fantastic story you could tell about it. We just can't get anywhere. Can't get anywhere at all. So, another fantastic piece that's unbelievably important. I've just got piled up round me again, and to try and get any factual information out there and try and actually tell a proper story, it's just banging your head against a brick wall.
Mm-hmm.
You know, as Richard says, if you've got a bent nail or some pieces of wood, oh, flipping heck, you're a genius. And you come back next week, because next week you're definitely going to find a gold bar. You know, it's nonsense.
No,
I
Absolutely
won't even watch it
nonsense.
But you've got
anymore.
a sample of a hitherto, unknown substance, unclassifiable by science,
Yep.
or you've got sonar scans and satellite photographs and artifacts indicating anomalous structures on the sea floor. You
Yeah,
can't
we've
get it
talked about
published.
that. Yeah.
Which is blows my mind. It's like, and I'm very happy for real science to prove me wrong, to prove that we're completely chasing chimeras, seeing patterns where there are none, or to prove that the stones fit into a known taxonomy. I would love an explanation. But to simply be stonewalled the entire time and have and find that you can't publish the material, you can't get it analyzed, you can't get it onto television, you can't actually tell anyone about it, is it's super bizarre. The most extraordinary treasures simply end up gathering dust on the mantelpiece and becoming curiosity pieces for.
You need to just find the right director, the right producer, who would take it on, who's just well connected, but who can afford, to pay for their own productions. They don't have to rely on other people to do it, and that way, it's a whole different ballgame.
Yeah,
It
I
really
mean,
is.
the relic-y concept that we almost got going, me and Carl. I mean, the first series was great. There was so much potential in it. If that could be resurrected, but you actually do it as a factual program, the number of topics that you could do with that. If somebody would turn around and say, well, okay, let's make a proper factual program because we understand why this stuff is important, you could blow every pseudo history program off the planet, because not one of them who's broadcasting on any channel at the moment can put anything on the table. Nothing. And you look at the money that's being thrown around making these programs and what it's actually generating. I understand from the film company's point of view,
right?
We're selling it all around the world and it's broadcast everywhere,
right?
But it's rubbish. It's made up, and this latest batch of people who call themselves theorists. Well, hang on a minute. I thought you had researchers and you had experts.
That seems to be the buzzword now.
You're a theorist. I mean, basically, that just means I have a theory, which means I've just made something up because I want to come on television or write a book.
Maybe you're doing it wrong. Maybe you need to call yourself a theorist.
Well, another trend I've seen, particularly in social media, is there's an active distrust of experts. And an assumption that if you're an actual qualified archaeologist or somehow you're the enemy. There's a way in which people have sort of demonized real science and sort of assume the two things can't coexist. Really, there needs to be a synergy, because the stuff needs to be brought over into academia. I want real archaeologists to look at Montsegur. I want real archaeologists to look at the initiatory caves. I want to know how old those things really are. I want to be able to use the same technology they used to date the Wailing Wall in Jerusalem to be able to date the walls in Montsegur. I would like to apply real science to. I'd like to get a spectrographic analysis done of the stones. I would like to bring the stuff into real science. And if we could actually get the data, if you could get proof that of that anomalous technological debris that's in your possession, Hamilton, then you've really got something which would go a ways towards shoring up their wild theories.
at the moment, Graham Hancock is being absolutely torn to shreds by the whole world for
I
daring to
know.
suggest that, civilizations are older than everybody thinks, and artifacts, well, we can't date them as accurately, and everything seems to
I
be
thought it
much
was a great
older.
series.
And
Yeah.
he's being shredded like you won't
Yes.
believe by
Yes.
people who haven't actually got a clue and have got no evidence.
Mhm.
Well, me and Richard were talking about this, about actually trying to get hold of Hancock and just say, mate, we've got a whole box full of stuff. Do you want to take this away and go and put it on some tables? Because we can actually prove everything you say is correct.
Maybe you need to
You know,
collaborate with Graham Hancock.
yeah, I mean,
Just saying,
it
you
can be
guys.
done, but it just seems that either the public or whatever the powers that be that are in control of the broadcasting authorities simply don't want to know. They want the
Well, yeah,
public kept
that's
to
the
sheep.
thing.
Yeah,
I hope
well,
that's
you
not
know.
true.
Mhm.
But there is an issue with the fact that a lot of this material has been occult for a long time, because it's been persecuted for a really long time. There's been hundreds of years where anyone who's known anything about any of this stuff has been killed, tortured, or burned at the stake.
Mhm.
We've simply assumed in our own lifetimes that no longer holds true, and that we can swan in there and say, "Hey, there's this and there's this and this,"
Mhm.
and in fact, what we're discovering is that it's actually not possible to talk about a whole range of these subjects.
Right.
I've been hopping from foot to foot trying to get this round thing in front of the public for so long now that like trying to get the analyzed, that I'm starting to wonder if it'll ever happen in my lifetime, or if there isn't some algorithm or uber force which is
Tamara made a good point. She goes, maybe you guys just need to get some pre-orders. Oh, I've known people who've done it. They get pre-orders, they get prepaid in advance for the book. It's like, you want a book, pre-orders, they get paid in advance, they print the book, and then it's good to go. I've known authors who have done it very successfully.
Maybe. Yeah, I mean, it's out of my sort of sphere of understanding. Maybe it's possible. I just simply don't know.
I've
because
seen it happen. It seems to be the easiest way now for authors to do this print as you go. They're like, okay, how many pre-orders that are paid for? How many people want it? This much. This is how many books get paid. You get your profit. You get the book paid for. It gets printed. It gets shipped. Just saying.
Maybe, yeah. I mean, we do know somebody up in Andorra that does very interesting history books on the Pyrenees, and that's the method he uses.
There you go.
And maybe we need to go and pay him a visit. You know, it's finding somebody who actually does it, that can sit and explain it to you.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, I'm glad. Again, people, mark your calendars for February 23rd when these two gents are back with another. They'll have something new to talk about at this point as well, and then we can continue on. From here, because people are just like hanging on, and we're slowly going over the 2-hour mark. And believe me, I could keep
Can I
going.
bring this back to Henry before we close?
Yes, of course. Go.
Before closing, I'd like to bring this back to Henry Lincoln.
Okay.
Whose real name Henry Soskin. I should also note that it probably didn't just start with that book, with the Treasure Maudite, the one that Hamilton has, because one of the weird things about Henry is he was an actor before he was a writer. And there's an obscure French movie by Georges Franju called Red Knights, aka Shadow Man, in which Henry Lincoln acts. And he plays a British writer researcher who is utilized by a secret society to write a best-selling novel about a phony Templar treasure. And the crazy thing is, Henry plays the part in old age makeup. He plays it as old Henry wearing a white beard. But it's a good 10 years before the Treasure Maudite, and has pretty much the same outline as everything that he says later in Holy Blood and the Holy Grail. So it's kind of smoking gun evidence that Henry was thinking about it at least 10 years before he admits to be
fascinating.
thinking.
That's fascinating.
Then I got over here. It was just in that show and tell thing.
Okay, another show and tell. Let's do it.
Yeah, a note that fell out of Genesis. It's from David Wood to Henry. From Woods' address in Owl's Nest Wood, which is a bit like you and Licky and Hamilton. Note
it is,
in a Harry Potter kind of way. Everybody here seems to look at the little off-world pocket. Yeah, so he's writing from Owl's Nest Wood in Pembury. And the letter says, Dear Henry, I realized from our last meeting that you would prefer to avoid the deeper occult signs that manifest themselves in the Wren Valley, but I feel that it all predates 777, and that it is the shrine of the servitor of the pre-Adamite race, who was deified in many areas under many titles, the great mother goddess Ishtar. Having accepted this, there is no longer any mystery. Then running on to the end of it, the locations are sometimes confirmed by the manuscript, sometimes by stones, and sometimes by paintings, but all are confirmed. I will go to the valley again to confirm one last location on the ground, and I know that if that is correct, they all are. Rest assured, I will disturb nothing. Sincerely, David.
Wow.
Fabulous.
Fabulous. Wow. That's amazing.
Whoa.
There's just one of those little tidbits that's being hidden away.
Yeah.
But now it's like everybody got to hear it. We know it exists.
There's stuff out there which is real stuff, and
Yes.
I wish that there was some way that we could share it more fully with you.
Yeah. You know what? That would be fantastic. But we'll have to do it again. Quick. Kurt, who mentions again the question about when the book is going to come out, Otto Rahn, you're going to have to listen to the archive for that, because we covered that a little bit early on, and we are out of time, unfortunately. But again, mark your calendars, guys. February 23rd is a Thursday.
You're on.
Yes, and you guys are back at that point, and we will definitely, continue on and add another interesting tidbit as to what Hamilton and has made me privy to. So we're going to talk about that. I can't say much more than that. I'm sorry, but that's the way it goes. And Hamilton's like, yeah, that's right. So yeah, perfect. So guys, have a fantastic new year, and Hamilton, stay in touch so we can make sure we're on track with this.
Around.
Yes. Okay.
You too. And blessed 2023 coming up.
It is 2023, new year, new adventures, new journey, all that jazz. So
definitely,
I know. So thank you guys for joining me. It was a lot of fun, and hopefully Amelia will be back with us on the 23rd, and then it's really going to be a party. So we'll have our little celebration then when you guys are on. So
perfect. Cool.
Good stuff.
Good.
We will be joining you whenever we just said, February somewhere.
February 23rd, darling.
Okay. Well, take care, one and all, and
definitely.
Happy trails, and may they
onwards and upwards. Onwards and upwards. Nice one. Cheers, Michelle. See you soon.
All right. Night, guys. Oh my gosh. So guys, we have come to the end, of course, of another fantastic segment here on the Outer Realm. So thanks to everybody who tuned in. You guys just rocked it. It was a lot of fun. And again, February 23rd. So make sure you guys are there. Big thank you to Richard Stanley and Hamilton White for coming on. What a fantastic collaboration that was. So much information was shared. So much more is coming, because I do know about some of said information. So I can tell you it's really going to be amazing. Huge thank you to Folgers. Yes, thank you for being a part of our journey. Big thank you to Dr. Snick, Justin Snicker. Huge thank you to Steve McGinnis. Thank you guys all for being a part of the Outer Realm family in one form or another. So guys, you want to email us, either head over to the Outer Realm group page, click on the email, or just take the shortcut, the Outer Realm contact@gmail.com. If you're there, no matter how you guys are watching tonight, please subscribe, follow, like, whatever it takes. We appreciate you so much. So most importantly, Happy New Year to you guys. We were going to see you in 2023. Still working on something really amazing because we had to do a switch for next Wednesday. So that'll be a surprise as to what the first show of the year is going to be. But on the Thursday is going to be another roundtable Q&A for episode 300. Right? Yay. So anyway, everybody have a good time. Be safe out there, and we will see you all in the new year. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Bye-bye.